Hi everyone, today I'll be going over the settings that are important for World vs. World and why. I won't be going over all settings, I'll just be going over the ones that I think are important for World vs. World and that you should have on or off depending on what they currently are for yourself. The first settings that matter are going to be the AoE loot and all this stuff right here. What these do are basically just eliminates all of the annoying part about picking up loot. Having this along with the auto loot trait in your rank and abilities, which is Provisions Master rank 4, will make it so that you won't miss out on loot ever. The next ones are the show all enemy, NPC, player, and usable object names. What these do is they show the enemy names for NPCs, show all NPC names is for allied NPCs, player names is for both allied and enemy players, and usable object is for siege. Now, the ones that you absolutely need on are player names and enemy names. The reason why is because enemy NPCs can CC you. Allied NPCs aren't as important because they won't be interacting with you that much, but enemy names and player names are absolutely needed, and usable object names is very nice to have, as you might be able to see the siege name before you see the siege itself, letting you know where it is a lot easier. Next is show skill recharge. What this does is it puts a cooldown timer on your skill. When it's off, you will see that I have a circle that's going around, but I don't know exactly how long each section of the circle is. With this on, it gives me an exact cooldown. This is useful for timing your abilities and letting the commander know how much time you have left until big abilities. Next is show target health percent. The reason this one is important is because a lot of times you will have an enemy or allied lord where the commander asks how much health it has left. This will give you an accurate reading of it. Next is thick party and squad health bars. The reason this is important is because with thick party health bars, it'll put a large health bar over your party members, and it'll let you locate them very easily. If you put on thick squad health bars as well, it won't let you locate the party members, but you'll be able to see the overall health of the squad easier. I recommend being able to see your party members much more than being able to see the full squad, especially when you're still learning. Next is always show party and squad health bars. You always want this on so that you know the general health of all your allies. Now, down to the camera. The rotation speed is something that you need to get used to. It lets you turn your camera faster or slower based on the mouse. I prefer a lower rotation speed because another thing that comes into the factor is your mouse DPI. The lower your rotation speed, the more you need to move your mouse, but I'm comfortable at this level of rotation. Some people are able to go all the way at the top, like so, and it's much faster for them to turn, but I can't control it that well, so I have it a little lower. Finding your sweet spot for rotation speed is something that will take trial and error, most likely. Next is horizontal position. I like to keep this in the middle simply because I like my character in the middle in horizontal position. What this does is it lets you offset your camera to the left or right of your character. I don't recommend being on the left or right of the character because it just makes things a little awkward for me when aiming skills. But if that works for you, that's the setting that can change it slightly for you. Next is vertical position near and far. Both of these just raise the camera higher. You can have it all the way low, or you can have it much higher. I highly recommend having this at the highest possible because it will give you the best view overall on what's going on. Collision sensitivity I have at the lowest. The reason why is because there's a lot of lag in zerg fights, and there's some things that collision sensitivity messes up. like this tree right here, because I have collision sensitivity so low, the camera goes in front of the tree. If I put it higher, it goes behind the tree like this. Now, the tree is in my way when it's this high, but when it's this low, it doesn't ever get in my way. My camera kind of jerks forward, but it doesn't get in my way. I don't lose vision. Another downside of high collision sensitivity is that if I wanted to cast, I don't know where I'm casting. I ended up casting on the tree instead of in front of me, right here. So having this low is definitely beneficial. Zoom sensitivity is personal preference. I have it really low because I might accidentally zoom during a fight and I don't want to end up in first person mode by zooming like this accidentally. Field of view I have on maximum. Some people don't like maximum simply because it stretches out the sides a little too much, but I want the largest view of the battlefield as possible, so having field of view all the way to the right will give me this much larger view. Having it, I think it's here on default, zooms it in, and my character is like all the way at the bottom. He's almost blocked by the UI. And if I go all the way, he's completely blocked by the UI. So having it as far back as possible lets me see a lot more. Now next is the invert camera y-axis. By default, moving your mouse up while right clicking will bring it down, and moving your mouse down will bring it up. Either way, this is a personal preference. If you want, when you move your mouse up, the camera to go up, you turn this on and it'll go up and down as you move your mouse. Turning this off will make it opposite. I've gotten used to the opposite without this setting, but normally I have this setting on for other games. Now, enable camera shake and disable camera shake. You need the first one off and the second one on. In World vs. World, there is a lot of stuff that will shake your camera, and having either one of these on will just make it so that your entire camera looks like this the entire fight. Enable camera teleportation. This one isn't extremely important as there's not many teleports during a zerg fight that you're going to go through, but certain things like portal bombs or the portals into keeps and whatnot, I don't know if camera teleportation is needed for them exactly because I've always had it on, but having this on will make it so that you can react much faster than having it off whenever you end up teleporting. Free camera is something that absolutely has to be on. What this does is it lets you look back, let go, and aim behind you like this. Without free camera, what happens is you look back, you let go to aim, and it puts you in front of you, wherever your character is walking. Your camera gets automatically adjusted. Free camera lets you look back and let go and aim. The reason this is important is oftentimes the commander will walk up, he'll see that the enemy pushes in, and he'll decide, okay, I want to run away. So you turn your camera once, turn your camera twice, and then you can cast behind as you're running away. Use the either mouse to change direction. This one has to be off, simply because having it on means that you can't turn your camera ever without your character changing the direction, but with it off, you can look behind you very easily. First person camera is personal preference, it doesn't really matter. And adjust the camera to character height. This one is something that has to be off if you have a vertical position, near and far setting that you really like, as this will change it between every single character. Next is combat movement. Ground targeting is the first thing that you want to look at. With normal, what that means is when you press the button and let go, it gives you the cursor and then you have to click with your mouse to actually cast it. This is something that needs to change immediately as you cannot do fast combos on normal. It'll be very difficult. Fast with range indicator means that when you press the button, it shows an indicator. When you let go, it casts the ability. Instant means that when you press the button, it instantly casts. regardless of whether you let go or not. Another benefit to an instant ability is that when you have something that casts at the end of a cast time, you can change its initial placement with your mouse. So if I have my mouse on the left here, and I cast it, but I move it to the right, the symbol ends up on the right. But with Staff 2, it instantly locks the target as soon as you press it, so even if I move my mouse to the right, it'll cast on the left. This is something that you're going to have to learn with instant. I don't know all the abilities that this affects, but there are some good abilities that it affects, like Mesmer Illusion of Life. If you're willing to learn instant, then go ahead. It is much faster for combos and whatnot, but you need to know your range beforehand. Fast with range indicator is much easier to use and much easier to learn overall. Next is double tap to evade. This must be off. Not just because double tapping it to evade isn't consistent, but also because commanders will make small movements, and those small movements might make you evade. An example would be a commander going up like this. Do a double tap to evade. You might end up dodging like that without wanting to. Turning this off is very important. Next is the auto-targeting. What auto-targeting does is it automatically selects a close target, so something like those barrels there. With it on, it means that even if I don't have anything selected, it's going to select them and make me hit them on anything that requires a target, any type of ability that requires one. Notable reasons for this is something that can be used for movement. As an example, it would be Hammer 2 for Guardian. It lets you jump forward like this a little bit. Great Sword 3 on Guardian as well will let you jump forward. Like this. With auto targeting on, if there's an enemy next to you, you won't jump forward and cover that ground. Instead, what will happen is it'll automatically select the target. If there's one on star, you'll press 3 and you'll go right here, instead of ending up on swirl there. So without auto targeting and you're facing swirl, you will jump to swirl. But with it, you will jump to star because there's an enemy there. Having this off will just make it more consistent on your actual movement and abilities that require targets that are normally used for movement. Another thing would be Ranger, needs this off especially. Next is lock ground target at maximum skill range. The reason this one is important is because what this does is, you can see my mouse is above the symbol, but it lets me only cast it when in range. With this off, it lets me try and cast it far away, but it doesn't actually let me cast it. I have to find the range like so, in order to cast it. I've seen people with or without this on. If you can get used to this off, you are free to, but I find having this at max range at all times is very nice because it lets me aim up here instead of having to aim specifically at this spot to hit them. Next is allow skill retargeting. Skill retargeting means that when you have a channel or some kind of ability that hits multiple times, you can have it on one target, and as they're running out of range, switch to another target without breaking the channel and continuing the rest of the damage on the new target. This is especially useful on Necro, as the Axe 2 is a channel and it does a lot of single target damage, but sometimes you'll have to switch targets during it because the other one is rolling or running out of range. Skill highlighting is something that is a new option. You can see my Holy Strike here has a white highlight because I'm standing on a light field. Now, combo fields and finishers are a topic that isn't going to be gone over in this video, but basically if you're standing on a combo field, in this case it's light, your finishers will have a little outline on them. Doesn't bother me, so I don't have it disabled, but if it's bothering you that your skills are lighting up throughout the fight, you can disable it here. One thing that I forgot to mention is snap ground target to current target. What this does is with it off, you can have anyone targeted and place anywhere you want. With it on, you are forced to place it on whatever you have selected. The reason this is bad is because an enemy that's moving is going to move out of your AoE by the time you finish casting it. So in this case, if I'm targeting myself and I cast it on myself, I barely get hit by it. But if I were to cast it in front of me as I'm running, I'm dead center when it hits. This will let you aim your skills a lot easier by having this off. Alright, so next is competitive. With team colors, it just dyes whatever you have selected in your team color. If you're a green team, the enemies will be red and blue. If you're a blue team, the enemies will be red and green. You can also have it on your allies as well, or you can have it on no one. This is personal preference. Standard enemy models, what this does is it puts every model into a certain thing for every class. It lets you identify the classes very easily if you have the standard enemy models on, and it also reduces lag because you won't have as much infusions and other stuff that are going to be cluttering your screen. Standard friendly models, same thing as enemy models. It's enable or disable. I have it disabled because I don't really mind friendly models. And world vs. world simple nameplates. What this does is normally if you have this off, you will see the full name of everyone, which includes their server, their host server, their rank, and then their guild tag. If you have it on enemies only, your server will have everyone's character names and guild tag, while the enemies will only have their guild tag. If they have no guild tag, you'll see a little red or blue or green triangle. I highly recommend having this on at least enemies only, because it causes way too much clutter on the screen if you have everyone's full name above them. Last things are the small things. It's going to be the high territory control lines. This is personal preference. I like to have them simply because the control lines let you know where you can glide, and I don't want to jump off a cliff and not be able to glide because I'm not in my friendly territory. The other one is show all commander tags. What this does is having this off means that when there's another commander tag on the map and they are close to your commander tag, they won't appear on the map. If they're far away, they will still appear on the map, but if they're close, they will be hidden. Now, if they're still on your screen, like if they're just standing next to you right here, you will still see their tag, but they won't be on the map itself. Alright, now for graphics options. A lot of this depends on your hardware, and you're going to need to figure out what works for you. The two things that I want to go over here, especially, are character model limit and character model quality. In World vs. World, these are the two things that are going to lag you the most. The limit is how many people are rendered. Normally, it's going to be your own party as they are closest to you that you see. The lower it is, the less people on screen, and enemies may be invisible, but you will still see their nameplates above them. Character model quality. At lowest, everyone has the same model to reduce lag. At low, you will see individual armors and whatnot at a low resolution. But having it on lowest will reduce the lag by a large amount, and then low will reduce the lag by a bit. The limit is going to be a huge reduction in lag as well, as there will be less players needing to be rendered on your screen. Another thing is motion blur power. You should have this off entirely, because you don't want to be turning around and have motion blur the entire time so you can't see what's going on as you're turning. You're going to be moving your camera a lot, and anything that removes your vision while moving the camera is always going to be bad. For sound options, the thing that matters the most is the effects volume. What that does is it increases the volume of the actual skills. There are certain skills that you will hear no matter what in a fight. One thing is going to be Scrapper and Fusion Bomb. Normally you'll hear this behind a wall where an enemy is trying to stealth and they will use it to blast their stealth. If you hear this and you know an enemy is behind the wall, just know that they might be stealth pushing you and you should be prepared. Another thing is Mesmer Gravity Well. What this is it's a 3-part CC ability, and if you hear this, it means that the enemy is going to be bombing you and you need to get out of there, one way or another. It's just something that you can raise above the others so you hear it more clearly. The rest of the things don't really matter too much. For the keybinds, I have on screen my keyboard and mouse. I have all the stuff color coded on sections. I would keep the grouped together colors similar as they work well together. For the blue, I have all my movement, including camera, about face, and actual movement. For green, I have the weapon skills and weapon swap. For the blue, for the white, I have heal on the left and then elite on the right. For the pink, it is my profession skills, my F1 to F5. And for the red, it is the utility skills. The yellow is interact, and on the mouse I have weapon stow. This is something that you can use to cancel channels like so. If you wish to stop yourself from actually putting them on cooldown. A small thing that isn't really needed, but it's nice to know for certain skills and abilities. For the keybinds, this is something that is going to need a lot of personalization, as everyone has different things that they can hit and can't hit. For me, I can't do shift combos where I press shift +1, shift +2, and things like that, so I had to change around my keybinds to accommodate for that. There are certain keybinds that by default are absolutely terrible. Example of this would be turn left and right. By default, they are on your A and D keys, but you want to change them to strafe left and right as soon as possible. The reason why is because being able to go left and right, like so, is impossible to turn left and right, as this is what happens when you press them. Just stand still and turn. And standing still is a death sentence, especially if it's in a bomb. If your commander just walking to the right like this, or to the left, you won't be able to follow them correctly with turn left and right. Another key that you need is dodge. This is something that you're going to get used to pressing very often and in tight situations, so it needs to be a button that you can press very easily. And lastly, the about face and movement. What this does is it turns the player towards the camera, like so. Then they can start running away. This is important because as you're running forward, your commander might call to run away. You can simply press this button and it turns around again. Press it again to turn around again. There are other movement tricks that you can use with this, like holding down mouse button and then pressing it will turn it around while leaving the camera where it is. Then you can press both mouse buttons to turn your camera back around, or turn your player back around. Now for the skills. What this needs here is all these abilities up until profession skill 5 need to be something that you can hit very easily, or something that you can hit consistently. The reason why is because a lot of classes will be using their profession skills at different rates. So there's 1 to 5 here. For Guardian, you only need 1, 2, and 3. For Scourge, you need 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. For Revenant, you need 1 and 2. So every class has a certain number of profession skills that are needed, but the Elite, Utility, Healing, all weapon skills, and weapon swap are shared between all classes and need to be things that you can hit consistently. The way I have mine set up is I have a weapon swap in a button that I can hit very easily and very quickly while moving. The important thing is that you can hit these while moving. The weapon skills are pretty much the same. I have it 2 to 6 because I run on ESDF instead of WASD, but 1 to 5 is perfectly fine if you can hit it. Healing skill is a button that you need to be able to press in case of emergencies very quickly, so you can have it mapped somewhere that is right next to where you move and you can just quickly hit it and keep moving. The Utility skills 1, 2, and 3. These need to be next to each other on your keybinds because a lot of combos involve multiple buttons of these. The way I have it is my X key is always my stun break if I have one, or my defensive ability. My C key is my most important ability on the class, and my V key is a combo ability. So for Firebrand, I don't really have those, but for Dragon Hunter, you can see it here. So my X key is something that can cast even while stunned, even though it doesn't stun break me. There isn't a stun break on Dragon Hunter, so I don't have a stun break to slot in here. My C ability is another trap. The reason why I have it on C is because you want to drop both traps at the same time. So I can just slide my finger to the right and get both traps down. And my V key is something that is added to combos. So if I wanted to drop traps and press my V, I can just do all 3 of them by sliding my finger across. Other classes will have a stun break, a ability that you want to kind of spam, and then an ability that you want to use in certain situations. Having them set up right next to each other will make it much easier to use them together. Then your elite skill needs to be something that you can press quickly and easily. For me, it's T. That would be the equivalent of R on WASD. But if I'm in a pinch or I know that I need to press my elite, I can instantly press it while moving without any problems. Now, for the profession skills, my F1 is used on every single class no matter what, because every class has some kind of profession skill. So I have it on a button that I can very easily press. In my case, it's my mouse button, simply because I have buttons on the side of my mouse, and having that will help a lot in the way you can keybind your abilities. My profession skill 2 is in my A key. I can hit that very easily with my pinky, as I'm not using the WASD. And if you are using WASD, I've seen people use shift combos where they go shift and 2 for your profession skill 2 and things of that nature. But the important thing is that you can hit your profession skills at a rate where if you know you need them, you can hit them very easily, even while moving. That would be the goal of mapping this. Another thing is, don't forget about your dodge. For me, it's left shift because it's a big key and I can hit with my pinky very easily. The next thing is targeting. Now, there are 2 keybinds in targeting that are absolutely important, and then one that is important but not too much, especially early on. Call target lets you put a marker over the target, like so. This marker is something that you can put on the commander, as the tag itself is small, but that marker is much larger than it. It'll have a little red outline. And if that helps you locate the tag easier, then you can definitely call the target on the commander. I don't think anyone's going to complain if you are able to stick the tag easier because of it. Next is take target. What this does is it lets you automatically select the thing that's targeted. If it's the commander, pressing this button is going to put the commander up top here. But if your group is using it to mark individuals on the enemy that are low or that need to be targeted, you can press this and instantly target them with your abilities. And the next thing is next enemy. So next enemy, what that does is pressing this button will shift through the available enemies. You can see here it switches between the 2 target barrels because it goes the closest and then the next closest and then the closest next closest. That's how it works. The reason you want next enemy instead of nearest enemy is because with nearest enemy, what that does is it only selects the closest one. It doesn't switch between them at all. If enemies are all relatively close and you're pretty much the same distance from them, it'll just shift through all the enemies so you can look through an enemy's zerg if they're tightly stacked before the fight. User interface, you don't really need to worry about the panels, especially because they're all available right here. So you can just go the top left and just click them out of combat. You don't need to open them up in combat, so you don't need to worry about actually using these keybinds as much. Now, for a camera, you can bind look behind. What that does is, as you're walking forward, it lets you look behind you very quickly. I personally don't use this, but if you find it easier to look behind you using this, then feel free to keybind it and get it sorted. Next is the miscellaneous. So don't forget your interact button, as this is something that is going to be important even in fights. I have it right next to my movement because out of combat and in combat it might be a little annoying. So when someone goes down next to you, you can press your interact button to resurrect them. Having this available is very nice. And the last thing I want to go over is templates. What this is in your hero panel, you have normally 2 templates here. You can have different gear setups on them, and you have 3 builds normally. You can have 3 different builds. The reason we want build templates is because they're out of combat, so you don't need them to be binded next to your movement. You can just have them on either a numpad like I do, or something very far away like your apostrophe or your brackets or things like that. The purpose is so that you can switch quickly. So right now I'm fully geared for Firebrand in full support gear, and now I'm fully geared for Dragon Hunter in full DPS gear, just by clicking 2 buttons. Being able to use this is very helpful, especially when you're switching, when your Zerg is needing one class over the other, and you can switch right before a fight very quickly. That concludes the settings overview. If you have any questions about any of the settings I mentioned, or if you think I forgot one that is very important, feel free to mention it or ask me. I'm sure that there is a full video explaining every individual setting if you want to go through that and what they do. So you can find that on YouTube as well.